And now, the news. In this week's edition of Is It a Renault or We're a Bunch of Filthy Liars, the Ford Fiesta is coming back. The car was discontinued in 2023, and the reasons given were the cost of parts increasing and the drivers preferred SUVs. In the past week, however, a deal between Ford and Renault was announced to build two small new EVs, one of which will be the new Fiesta. The car is going to be built using the Renault Ampere platform that underpins the Renault 4 and 5. It's going to be built in Renault's electricity plant, and when I say plant, I actually mean 3 different plants across multiple towns in northern France, which means it's effectively going to be another Renault. That said, Ford of Europe president Jim Baumbick has come out and said that Ford will lead the development of the design on things like the ride, steering, handling, and braking, in order to keep it acting more like a Ford and less like a Renault. Part of the reason that they're doing this is because they've seen what Renault can do with the Twingo, having gone from idea to production in 2 years, and that's a plan for the new Fiesta, with it expected to be on the market in 2028. The thing that irritates me is that Ford have cut 1,000 jobs at their Cologne, which is in Germany, EV plant this year due to weak EV demand. And now, instead of keeping those jobs, they're outsourcing the whole thing to Renault instead. This does, however, align with what seems to be a strategy from them, because they use VW's EV platform to build their Explorer and Capri EVs. Which does beg the question, at what point are Ford not actually going to be building Fords anymore, just outsourcing all Ford development to other companies? It also shows just how bad the planning is over at Ford. They've cut a whole bunch of European models like the Focus and the Fiesta recently, saying that people prefer SUVs. Now they've seen the sales figures drop, they're coming back in, having gotten rid of a whole lot of people, just to then pay other companies to do it instead. The one benefit you find is that obviously you don't have to deal with labor issues, and also the infrastructure for setting up EV production is expensive and time consuming, so they do save on that front at least. But this is the same company that said a few weeks ago that they wanted to start building iconic vehicles, which was one of the justifications for stopping the Focus in the first place. I suppose they're not completely lying, because the Fiesta and the Focus are iconic in their own right. I just don't understand why they had to stop the production of the models just to restart them, using the iconic vehicles excuse just to get rid of them, only to, ironically, bring these iconic vehicles back again. There's no word on whether the other car that Renault's going to be producing for them is going to be the Focus or not, but I'd be willing to put money on it. Also, as a side note, imagine being a German worker, getting fired from Ford because they don't need you anymore, decide you're going to take your EV expertise to Renault, and then you end up building Fords anyway. I would like to talk about a man called Luc Donkerwolke. I didn't know about this man's existence, and now I'm glad I do, because it turns out he's been involved in the design of a lot of awesome cars in the past. Now, I want to just touch on his bio, then I'll go into his resume, then I'll go into the cars he designed, and finally as to why I'm even talking about him in the first place. He was born in Peru and attended schools across South America and Africa. He studied engineering and design in Belgium and Switzerland. His hobbies include motor racing, old cars, foreign cultures, and learning languages, and if it sounds like I'm reading off his Wikipedia page, I am. He also speaks Dutch, Italian, French, Spanish, English, German, Korean, Mandarin, Japanese, and Swahili. So we've established he's a man of culture, but now we need to understand why he's actually relevant here. Between Wikipedia and LinkedIn, I've pulled some highlights of his career, and these include being the head of one of Audi's design studios in the late 90s, being the head of design at Lamborghini, being a design director at Seat, being a director of design, I'm sure that's a different job title somehow, at Bentley, being at Hyun-day from 2016 until the present in various roles. In the past, he's been in various vice president of design roles within Hyun-day. Hyun-day? Hyun-day. I need to start that part over. How would you say Hyun-day? No, because it's we say Hyun-day, but don't they say Hyun-day? At least that's what you can't even spell it now. So Duolingo told me. Anyway, Hyun-day. Hyun-day pronunciation. There it says Hyun-day. Oh, it's Hyun-day if you pronounce it British. It's Hyun-day. Oh, it's Hyun-day if it's American. How do you say it in Korea? How do Koreans pronounce Hyun-day? No, I'm saying Hyun-day. No, I'm saying it like an American. In Korean, that word is pronounced closer to Hyun-day. So it's Hyun-day, not Hyun-day. Wait, like Hyun as in Hugh and day as in day. I know, but I was right then. So it's not Hyun-day, it's Hyun-day. Hyun-day. In Korean, that word is pronounced closer to like that. Like Hyun as in Hugh. Hyun? Hyun-day. Hyun-day. A softer two-syllable sound, not Hyun-day, which is the common English mispronunciation. Korean speakers use a sound similar to Hyun-day or Hyun-day, emphasizing the first syllable. So Hyun-day. The company officially pronounced Hyun-day. Yeah, Huhn-day for global consistency. But there's like 10 different ways of pronouncing it just in this line. So we're going to go with Hyun-day. Hyun-day? Hyun-day. Hyun-day. Now I'm confused. I've been saying it my whole life. But I've been saying, well, it depends on who you ask, I guess. I've been saying it wrong to somebody. I guess no matter how you say it wrong. So we're going to go with Hyun-day. Okay, we're going to go with Hyun-day. Okay. Back to the video. No, we're going to start this over because I've gotten completely sidetracked by how to pronounce Hyun-day. So we're going with Hyun-day from now on, even though that's wrong depending on who you ask. But no matter which way you do it, you're wrong no matter what. So whatever. He's been at Hyun-day since 2016. He's held various vice president of design roles, but he's also been getting a lot of promotions. Currently, he is the chief creative officer and also the president of the Hyundai Motor Company. He also has similar roles at Genesis, which is the luxury brand of Hyundai, similar to how Honda has Acura. He was also named World Car Person of the Year in 2022 for significantly impacting the automotive industry. I thought the Queen should have been named World Car Person of the Year in 2022 because she passed away in 2022 and you usually get awards posthumously, which means after you've died. And she did a lot of good work in showing us that S-classes aren't as safe as they claim to be. Anyway, we've gotten very off track, so let's get back to Mr. Donker Volker. I've picked out some of the cars he designed. This isn't a full list, but it should give a general idea of what he's done. So, the list. Skoda Octavia, Skoda Fabia, Audi A4 Avant, Audi R8 Le Mans, Bentley Flying Spur, Hyundai Tucson, Hyundai Sonata, Genesis G80, Genesis G90, Audi A2, Lamborghini Diablo VT, Lamborghini Murcielago, Lamborghini... There's another word I can't pronounce. It's Gallardo. In Italy, you say Gallardo. I know that for a fact. The rest of the world says Gallardo because that's the Spanish way and it's named after a Spanish bull. But if you're Italian, you say Gallardo. But I'm not Italian. So do I say Gallardo? The baby Lamborghini. And also it should be pointed out that he won an award for the design of the baby Lamborghini and the Murcielago. Effectively, what I'm getting to with the story is that when he talks, people should listen because he's been around the block a few times and he has a good idea of how design trends go. And the thing that he's saying at the moment is that people are going to get bored of SUVs. Currently, the car world is just obsessed with SUVs and that's all we're really seeing at the moment. But he has a different take on it. Okay, so what he says about SUVs is the following. At the moment, there is, let's say, a multiplication of SUVs. And this fast growth will create a saturation. This is when other typologies of cars are going to become attractive again. This is why I strongly believe in not having a typology monoculture. Effectively, what he's saying is at the moment, everyone's making SUVs. And at some point, people are going to get bored of only having SUVs on the streets and go and hunt different kinds of body type. And then when that starts to happen again, manufacturers need to be ready to adapt to the needs of the consumer. You know, with everything being an SUV these days, I'm going to have to add a segment called SUV Watch. Anyway, on the latest edition of SUV Watch, we have Lotus, which is a British sports car company, except for the fact that it's owned by Geely, who are Chinese, and it's headquartered in Wuhan. I'm not going to do anything with that. Anyway, global business hasn't been amazing for them lately, given the fact that they're a sports car company and don't focus on large volume vehicles. It's all been made worse because of the EU's plans to drop combustion engines. Now, obviously this affects everyone, but a smaller car company that focuses especially on sports cars is going to get hit even harder by it. This has prompted them to move into EVs early, and of course now they're being caught out by the fact that EV uptake isn't very high and that the EU might push back their plans to drop combustion engines. Enter an SUV called the Elettra. This is an all-electric SUV, but now what is coming to life with this is a hybrid option. As mentioned previously, Lotus have been caught out by the fact that EV sales are slow, and this is the best way to do something about that problem. Now you may be asking, is this the car for me?
Who, me? Yeah, you look like a kid who could use some...
And Lotus's answer is a little bit on the nose, because the car is literally called the For Me. As in, is the car for me? Yes, the car is for me. They really are trying to do anything to make sales at this point. Anyway, it's an exact copy of the Elettra, and the specs go as follows. It has a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder making 275 horsepower. Mate that to 2 electric motors, and the combined output is 952 horsepower. 0 to 100 takes just 3.3 seconds, and supposedly it'll do up to 261 miles or 420 kilometers on battery power only. The thing is, being based in Wuhan, the calculations are based on the Chinese test cycle. And range, like virus severity in China, is based on a much more forgiving test cycle. so figures may drop when the car is eventually sold globally. The car is expected to start spreading throughout China next month, and eventually will hop on some planes and start spreading globally as well, but there's no confirmed release date just yet. And that's the end of the news.